When someone says you need to use your breath support, do you actually know what to do? What breath support really is and how to use it. This video and this visual will answer all of your questions. You need breath support to sing high without straining or breaking. Hey! And to sing long, stable notes like, for example, Dimash does in Stranger. Right, you need breath support to sing without getting hoarse and damaging your voice, for agility, for singing on pitch, etc. Knowing how to use your breath support can help you fix a ton of problems. Okay, Bob, that's enough. Thank you. Thank you. Show off. Just this past week, I helped 3 singers finally sing powerful high notes in their mix past their voice break using this visual as the main agent of change. I've spent about 60 hours obsessing over this video, making it the ultimate guide on breath support and breath control. And it will also show you why you're probably breathing wrong, wasting energy, and making things way harder than they have to be. So, let's get started. For every note you sing, you need a precise amount of airflow. In the visual, you can see the amount of airflow on the vertical axis on the left and the volume on the horizontal axis at the bottom. PTP in the visual stands for phonation threshold pressure. This is the minimum amount of pressure needed to make your vocal folds start vibrating and produce sound. If you try to sing with too little airflow or pressure, you dip below the PTP and then there is no airflow and no sound. It's not dangerous and you can easily fix it by adding a bit more. Hey! If you try to sing with too much airflow or pressure, your voice will start to strain, hey! Or wobble and break to falsetto, hey! The sweet spot to sing any note is right above the minimum amount of airflow or pressure you need to produce sound. In general, this means you should sing with less airflow than you think. For every note, every pitch, every volume, every sound, the sweet spot is unique. Our goal when singing is to get as close as possible to that sweet spot every time. That way, we'll produce the healthiest, best sounding vocals with the least effort. The way to do this, to control your airflow, is by using breath support. For the remainder of the video, I'll just talk about airflow, but as you've already heard, when I say airflow, you can often replace it with air pressure, as they are closely linked. Now, if we sing quietly below our volume 5 out of 10, our sweet spot is larger than when we sing louder. Why? The most important reason is this. At low volumes, below your volume 5, you can sing with added air. You can also sing without added air. Hear the difference? Singing with added air literally means singing with more airflow. You can hear this, but you can feel it as well. Hold your hand in front of your mouth and shout, yeah! Now breathe in a lot, fill up your lungs completely and go, do you feel there's more air flowing out now? So, if we are singing quietly and we accidentally sing with a little too much airflow, the air can just escape without straining or damaging anything. The only result is an airy sound. Hence, the sweet spot before you start straining or breaking is large. If we sing louder than volume 5, we can no longer add air to our sound. If I try, my voice starts straining, hey! Or it breaks to falsetto, hey! Because in falsetto, my voice goes quieter and I can sing with added air again. So I can get rid of the air without damaging the vocal folds. So your voice transitioning to falsetto is a way to protect itself. This means that if your voice breaks to falsetto without you wanting it to, you probably tried to sing with too much airflow. So singing quietly is easier and safer in general, and to sing loudly is harder because we need to control our airflow more precisely. If we sing very high, the sweet spot becomes even smaller and you need even more control. Also, generally speaking, the PTP, or starting pressure, is a bit higher for louder notes. But for these loud notes, while the pressure is a bit higher, the actual airflow does not have to be larger. Because of this, the airflow sweet spot can seem even smaller when we sing loudly. To sing in this sweet spot as best as we can, there are two important variables to consider: your average airflow and your airflow stability. We need the correct amount of average airflow to stay in the yellow sweet spot area. But if my airflow is not stable, the average might be perfect, but it might fluctuate below and above the sweet spot. If this happens, you'd actually spend quite some time away from the yellow zone. If you'd often sing in the orange zone, you might not really notice anything after one song, but if you'd sing a whole concert that way, you'd probably be hoarse afterwards. Your breath support is the system that controls your airflow. You've been using breath support for all of your life. Otherwise, you would not have been able to talk. But to sing, we need very precise control. You could compare it to walking on solid ground and walking on a slack line. I've been walking for most of my life, and I feel pretty confident as a walker. A while ago, I got a slack line, and when I first got on there, my legs started to shake uncontrollably and I fell off time and again. I needed to expend a ton of energy to try to stay on, and still my legs wobbled and I could not keep myself from crashing. Now that I put in some hours, I can confidently walk from one end to the other without crashing and without expending and wasting a ton of energy to get the job done. I'm far from an expert, but the difference is huge, and I almost can't remember how hard it was when I first started. When friends come over and try, and I see them wobble uncontrollably, it helps me to remember. Talking is like walking on solid ground, and singing is like slacklining. Yes, you can do the basic thing, you can talk, you can make your vocal folds work, but once you start singing, you need finer motor skills than you're used to for just talking, especially when singing loud and high. The nice thing about walking on a slackline is that you get very direct and obvious visual and sensory feedback. Your legs start to shake and you fall off. With singing, the feedback is more subtle and more difficult to act on, but so very important. So, if your voice falls away, too little airflow. And if you start to strain or wobble or break, too much airflow. If you pay attention to this feedback, you'll learn to correct faster and more subtly, and you'll be able to stay in the sweet spot for longer. The more you practice in a particular area of your voice with a certain sound on a certain volume and pitch, the bigger the sweet spot will seem to become, and the less energy you'll have to expend to get to the end of your lines. So, to stay on that slack line, to safely get to the end of our vocal phrases, we need breath support. Let's now have a look at how breathing and breath support work anatomically. Our lungs are just bags. They're not muscles and they cannot do anything. But our lungs are attached to our ribs on the sides and to our diaphragm at the bottom. If we contract our intercostals, the muscles between our ribs expand, and so our lungs expand and air flows in. Same for our diaphragm. If we contract it, it pulls the lungs down, our lungs expand, and air flows in. So, breathing in requires us to actively contract muscles. If, after breathing in, we just relax and sigh out, the air flows out again. So, breathing out happens when we relax the diaphragm and the intercostals. When we sing, we don't want to breathe out that fast. We want to slow down the airflow to stay in that sweet spot and to be able to make it to the end of the line without our voices falling away, straining, or breaking. And that means we need to actively use our intercostals and our diaphragm to keep our lungs expanded so they don't empty themselves too fast. Let's try something. Place your hands on your lower ribs, breathe into your stomach, and even though you breathe to your stomach, you will probably still feel your lower ribs expand a little bit, right? Now, can you make the same movement with your ribs without breathing? So try to push your hands outwards with your ribs like this. Now try this while singing. Keep your hands on your lower ribs, breathe in, feel your ribs expand, and now sustain a note for as long as you can, and try to keep your ribs wide for as long as you can. Hey. At some point, your ribs will cave in to get the last air to flow out, but the longer you can keep them wide, the more control you'll have over your airflow. That was singing with active, conscious breath support. The lower ribs are just one of the areas you can feel your breath support working. Here's another. Put 2 fingers on your solar plexus. To find it, first find the hard center of your ribs and then move downwards until it goes softer. This is your solar plexus. If you cough, you'll feel it push out. Now, if you breathe in and hold your ribs wide, you'll probably also feel the solar plexus come out. If I breathe out without active support, my solar plexus caves in, along with my ribs. But if I breathe out with support, with my ribs wide, my solar plexus will stay out. You can also practice this by pushing your fingers out and letting them come in again without breathing. Some singers like to feel support more in the front, while others prefer the side or the back. You can also feel your ribs expand and hold them wide in the back. An alternative for putting your hands on your ribs or solar plexus is to tie a scarf around your lower ribs. Put it a bit tight, and then when singing, you can try to push your ribs against it. When you sing while keeping your ribs wide and your solar plexus out, you'll notice your belly slowly moving inwards. This is how you can control your airflow. If your stomach moves in fast, there's more airflow. If it moves in slow, there's less. Important, your stomach should always be slowly moving. Don't lock it as you would during a challenging visit to the toilet, because you'll probably start straining. Why do we support like this, with our ribs wide and our stomach slowly moving in? If we control our airflow with our stomach, we can be way more precise than if we try to do it with our ribs. Why? With our stomach, we just control a tiny bit of the surface area of the lungs, just the bottom plane. Our ribs control all the vertical planes around our lungs. The surface area is a lot bigger, and hence we can be less precise if we use our ribs to control our airflow. Compare it to emptying a tube of toothpaste. If I'd use my whole hand to squeeze all around, it would be difficult to get a nice subtle dollop of toothpaste. If I only squeeze from the back or with 2 fingers, I have way more control. So, try to keep your ribs steady and out, and your stomach slowly moving in. That way you'll have more control. That was the anatomy of breath support. But while I needed to explain this to be complete, I don't often use this with the singers I coach. Often you'll automatically use the right amount of breath support, especially when singing in a range that's comfortable for you. And when you need to actively turn it on because you're singing challenging vocals, there are probably easier ways to turn on your breath support and to control your airflow. Let's apply this in an experiment. We'll just sing, hey, 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 and keep going up with a powerful sound. This is a sound with a small sweet spot, especially when singing high, and hence requires very precise airflow and also very precise breath support. I'll give you some different methods to activate your breath support, and you can decide for yourself which work best for you. How can you tell? If you can sing higher with less straining and a more stable, fuller tone without breaking, these are all signs your breath support is doing its job and the method is working for you. Singing with the correct technique feels good, and when you notice strain or pain, that's a sign you're doing something wrong, often because you try to sing with too much airflow. For visual feedback, you can do these experiments in front of a mirror to see when your neck is relaxed or straining. You don't have to use all of these methods, just pick a couple you like and use what works for you. The first method, sing as if you were singing backwards, inwards, or to the crown of your head. This will automatically limit your airflow without you having to think about all the muscles that are involved. Try it. First shout, hey! Then sustain it. Hey! Now sing some notes and notice how they feel. You don't have to match my pitch, just find a pitch that's a bit challenging for you and then see what works. So, hey! 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 You can pause the video and experiment with different pitches and volumes, challenge yourself a bit, and look for the limits of your voice. But remember, good singing technique feels good. The second method, make a fist and while singing, pull it towards you, as if against a light resistance, as if you were pulling in something with a bit of weight. So not like this, floppy, but like this. While you do this, you can also lean back with your body. Focus, again, is directed backwards, and you can combine this with the first method. Try it. Hey! 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 The third method is one that can work well if you notice your notes are unstable or wobbling. I call it the grease lightning. Move your hand from one side to the other and make a straight line as you would want your airflow to be. If you want, you can finish the move, but that probably won't help your singing. So, hey! 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 With the fourth method, now we'll focus on anatomy. After breathing in, keep your ribs wide and your solar plexus out, let your stomach slowly move in and don't lock it. If you manage to keep your ribs wide, the speed your stomach moves in determines the amount of air flowing out. So if you notice you're straining or breaking, let your stomach come in slower. Hey! 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 What I like about the first three methods is that you don't have to think. You just do the thing and hopefully notice the result. With the fourth method, the anatomical approach, the risk is that you focus too much on the individual muscles and start flexing and straining too much because of that. I hope some of these methods worked for you. Combine whichever you like, notice how high you can get and how much you strain. Also notice it takes quite some energy to sing powerful high notes like this. And this is really like walking a slack line. You can easily fall off, but the more you practice, the steadier you become and the less energy you'll have to expend to get to the end of your line, whether it be a slack line or a vocal line. Another way to test these methods is to pick a comfortable starting note and then slide up to a challenging note. So, like this. Hey! Again, try some different methods, see what works for you. Now we know how we can use our energy to control our airflow. What if I told you there's an easy way to decrease how much breath support energy we have to expend? I know you probably noticed that bar on the right side of the visual and you've been wondering, what's that for? It's about how you should breathe for efficient, effortless singing. I'll first explain how it works and then we'll do some experiments. If you walk on the street and you see someone, do you first need to go before you can say hello? No, you can just say hello. You don't need a lot of air to produce sound. We need just a tiny bit of air for speaking, and we don't constantly gasp for air while in conversation. It would be tiring. Singing is almost the same as speaking. We just sustain our vowels for a bit longer, and then we're singing. The difference is that when we sing, we do often gasp for air. Hello, it's me. The breath we take in also needs to come out, specifically before the next moment we want to take a new breath. Otherwise, we cannot take in new air and we die. Our bodies want to stay alive, so if I take in too much air, my body will make sure to get rid of the air before the next intake. This can happen in two ways. 1. During singing. 2. After singing. The first, during singing, and there will be added air on my voice. If I sing quietly, this is not a big problem. La 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 la. I won't damage my voice, but I will also automatically have an airy sound while singing. Versus and maybe I don't want that. The second, if I choose I want to sing loudly above volume 5 out of 10 or quietly and without added air, I can use my breath support system to limit the air flowing out. But the more air I take in, the more air I have to keep from flowing out, and the more breath support energy it will take. And if I succeed, the superfluous air will still need to come out. If I don't let it out during singing, it will come out after singing, like this. Hello, it's me. I was wondering. You hear, I need to breathe out first before I can breathe in again and start my next line. If you start paying attention to this, you'll hear many singers do this, often with a little sigh or cry after. Hello, it's me. It means they probably took in more air than they needed for a line and were fighting the pressure from that air to prevent it from coming out. Maybe the biggest problem with this is that if we breathe in a lot, we can often not come up with the required breath support energy to stay in the airflow sweet spot. And so we'll start straining, maybe ever so slightly, but after a while we'll start to get hoarse or even get vocal cord damage. In the visual, the bar on the right represents your lungs and how full they are. If the amount of air in your lungs is in the yellow zone, it's easiest and requires the least amount of energy to control your airflow. If your lungs are fuller or very empty, you enter the orange and red zones and you'll need more support energy to control your airflow. Now, let's try some experiments so you can experience all this for yourself. Breathe in until your lungs are completely full and then hold your breath. Keep holding it. Do you notice you have to work quite hard to hold that breath in? Maybe you feel a bit of pressure in your throat already. Do you feel the air wants to come out? Okay, now relax and let the air flow out. Now we'll do it again, but this time we'll just take in a tiny bit of air. Here we go. And hold it. Much easier to hold, right? And you probably don't feel strain or pressure now. Okay, relax and let it go. So you felt that the fuller your lungs are, the more energy you need to control your air. During singing, this works the same. If you breathe in more air than you need for a certain line, you need to use more breath support energy. Because of that, you go tired quicker, and when you're tired, you won't be able to support enough anymore, and you won't be able to control your airflow. You'll start straining, losing control, and getting hoarse. Now, here's the dumb thing. When do we generally strain the most? When singing high, powerful notes. When do we reflexively breathe in the most? When singing high, powerful notes. And when do we actually need the least airflow? When singing high, powerful notes. For most people, myself included, when a tricky high note is coming, I'm a bit scared and I reflexively want to take in a big gulp of air. What happens? As you just found out, if you take in a lot of air, you feel immediate pressure even before you start singing. I think this might be some sort of fight or flight response. We know the high note or the climax is coming, we're a bit scared, we prepare, and we take in a big gulp of air to be able to fight or flee. But here's the problem. Taking a big gulp of air oxygenates our body and helps us fight in case we need to face down a tiger, but we don't need that for singing. It even makes it worse. Air that flows in also wants to flow out. We create unnecessary pressure, so for singing, it's an unhelpful reflex. Now try this. Breathe in, sigh out, and then sing a powerful hey! Sustain it for as long as you can. So, hey! Etc. Notice how long you can sustain the note even after exhaling. This proves you don't need a lot of air to be able to sing a powerful note. If I take in a big breath, I can still control it and avoid straining by using a lot of breath support energy. Hey! But why would I do that? It's a waste of energy. Okay, now let's talk about your rel. Breathe in fully, and now relax and sigh out. This point of balance, where no air wants to flow in or out when you just relax, is called your rel. It stands for resting expiratory level. The average human lung capacity is about 6 liters. About 4 liters, or 2/3 of your lung capacity, are above your rel, and about 2 liters, or about 1/3 of your capacity, below. Now, let's breathe in again, then relax and sigh out, and then try to push out the last bit of air on an F or S sound, until your lungs are completely empty. So, two things to notice here. Before the rel, we need to hold back air, and after the rel, we need to actively push out air. Did you notice how much energy it takes to push out that last bit of air when going beyond your rel? And did you notice it's quite hard to control and keep the airflow stable? So, how to sing efficiently? Only inhale the air you need to end up near your rel after your line. Take in more and you waste energy holding airflow back. Take in less and you waste energy pushing air out. Here's an exercise progression to help you do this. Pick a song, preferably one you find difficult with some high, powerful notes you're afraid of. Level 1, take a moment to take a couple of small, relaxed breaths in and out. A relaxed inhale like this provides you with enough air to sing 90% of your songs, especially the high and powerful bits. Then, after a normal, relaxed inhale, sing a phrase from your song. Then, pause and reflect. How far away from your rel do you think you are? Did you end before or after? Then, take some relaxed breaths in and out again and repeat for the next line. Try to end up near your rel. Most singers tend to take in too much air, so experiment with how little air you can inhale. Level 2, do the same thing, but instead of taking multiple breaths in between lines, just take one small relaxed inhale. While doing this, try to aim for ending a line near your rel again. If you find this hard, you can also, for this exercise, breathe in through your nose, because that way you won't be able to take in as much air as when you gasp through your mouth. If you do this correctly, you'll need to expend a lot less physical energy to sing, both on the inhale, which costs energy if you actively take in a big gulp, and on your exhale, because it takes more energy to control large amounts of air. And now you've experienced you don't need that air, why take it in? While getting used to this, it will take a huge amount of focus and mental energy. This is normal. You're changing habits that have been there for years. Level 3, now just sing the song without thinking. Sometimes pause after a line and check how far you are from your rel. If you find this hard to determine, you can pause after a line and try to sigh out. Hello. If you notice a lot of air flows out when you do this, you could probably have inhaled less. If no air comes out, you are very close or past your rel. There are 2 exceptions to this kind of minimal breathing. The first, when singing quietly and with added air. It literally costs more air to sing with added air, so you'll need to take in more. Quick tip, if you find it hard to sing with added air, just take in a huge breath and then sing quietly. Hey. You won't even be able to sing without added air then. The second exception, when you have an extraordinarily long phrase. Sometimes you will need to take in a larger breath to make it to the end of your line, but this does not happen often. If you need to do this, make sure to use a lot of breath support at the start of the line, or you'll lose the extra air you took in straight away. Use the air past your rel as a backup, a reserve. It's not nice to sing with that backup air, but it is possible in a pinch. If you don't find you sometimes go past your rel, you probably still breathe in too much. This is a great time to return to the hey, hey, hey exercise. First, try doing the exercise after a huge inhale. Hey, hey, hey! That was hard to control and I was straining a bit. Now take in just a little air and then go. Hey, hey, hey! That cost less energy and it felt way more relaxed. If you find it hard to take in just a little breath, you can also talk for a bit and then go straight into singing without breathing in before, like this. Hey! Now you know what kind of breath you need to sing efficiently, a little one. Try the exercise again with your favorite breath support methods. So singing backwards, pulling your fist backwards, or using the grease lightning. If you need to, first take a couple of relaxed breaths in and out, or breathe in, then out on an F sound, and then go straight into singing without breathing in. Hey, hey, hey! I think with this kind of minimal breath, you'll need to use less breath support to get similar or even better results. Now here are 2 breath support workouts, because even when we sing more efficiently, we still need breath support, and using it still requires physical energy. If you're tired, after singing for a long time, being sick, or a bad night's sleep, that's when to pay extra attention to your breath support, as you'll probably use less than you normally would and should, even on comfortable notes. Once you get tired and you cannot support your singing or speaking voice anymore, your voice will quickly get hoarse and it will all be downhill from there. So here's a workout to increase your breath support stamina and to activate it before singing. It's called the shitty kitty. Imagine there's a cat about to take a shit in your garden. You would prefer if he would take his crappy business elsewhere. In the Netherlands, the sound we use for a job like this is ks, so K-S-S, ks. We'll do it with a lot of power in groups of 3, like this. Ks, 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 ks. While you do this, try to keep your ribs wide and pull your stomach in hard. Ks, ks, You can use this in two ways: to activate or to train. You can do a couple of shitty kitty rounds as part of your warm-up to activate your breath support and to remind your body to use breath support when you actually start singing. Do this until you feel your stomach activate, but not until you get tired. Probably 10 times 3 shitty kitties is enough. You might notice you strain less when singing after activating your breath support like this. To use the shitty kitty to train your stamina, do it after singing. And do the shitty kitty until your abs are burning. Most singers will experience this within 2 minutes, as if you just did an ab workout in the gym. Good breath support stamina will help you sing longer without getting hoarse. Don't do this before singing because otherwise you'll be tired before the actual work starts. And don't do this while pregnant or while in traffic, as you might get lightheaded. The second workout is called the Leaky Tire, where the shitty kitty trains brute force. This one trains control and awareness. Breathe in and then breathe out on a very quiet S sound. Try to sustain it for as long as possible and try to keep the volume as stable as possible. If the volume is stable, the airflow is stable, and that's what we want. The quieter you do this, the harder it is. Variations: 1. Play with your inhale. Try this breathing in a lot. Try it with a tiny breath, or even after exhaling. Notice how it feels and how much energy it takes to control. Variation 2. Play with how long you sustain it. You can choose to stop at your rel or to go beyond your rel until you're completely empty. If you go beyond your rel, you'll also learn to control that backup air. If you get good at this, you can use it without people noticing. I'm on reserve air now, beyond my rel, and it sounds okay. Versus, I'm on reserve air now, and it sounds like my tombstone might say death by song. The third variation, do this while sustaining a note. Hey. Sustain it and keep it steady. Try it on different pitches, volumes, and vowels. While doing the Leaky Tire, you can use the methods from the hey, hey, hey exercise to help you. So sing backwards to the crown of your head, slowly pull your fist backwards, or do the grease lightning. To get the most out of these two workouts, try to keep your ribs wide while doing them. It'll train your muscles harder, and the muscle memory from these workouts will seep into your normal singing too. And here is the most important part of this video: how to use what you've learned. If I had watched this video 10 years ago, I would have started hyperventilating halfway through. How can I remember all of that and think of all that while singing? But here's the good news. Most of the time, you'll use the right breath support automatically while singing. You don't have to think about it. When breath support often goes wrong is when you're tired or when you're going to the extremes of your voice. Because breathing and breath support are such automatic behaviors, if you'd focus on them all the time, you'd be at risk of going absolutely breath shit crazy. I'm a dad. Please allow me my dad jokes. So, here's my advice. Sometimes focus on your breathing and your breath support. For a short time, practice hard with full focus. I know that some of the ideas in this video spoke to you more than others. Pick your favorite one or two and experiment. Then forget all about breath support and just enjoy singing for a while. Slowly, what you practiced will turn into new habits that will automatically turn up in your singing. If you're ready, come back to this video and try a new idea. And if you ever find yourself straining, wobbling, or breaking when singing, you can always try to sing backwards, use your fist, use the grease lightning, or think about keeping your ribs wide. If you want to download this visual and get some more help with your breath support, some extra breath support workouts, and some tips to make your singing even more efficient, go to bobsmank.com/control for a free mini course. If you combine what you've learned in this video with this one, you'll sing with even less effort.